Hi everyone, welcome back to another video, and this video I'm going to take you through the build process for a garden block house, at least the type that we build. I know there's many people that are doing DIY projects, doing their own projects, and trying to find how to build their own. So I'm just going to try and explain some of the process that we go through and just show you the 20 days that it took us to build this small house. So as you can see, we had an old shed to take down. Most people do have some clearing to do. That was the first skip. That took about a skip's load. Just to give you context of size, this is an 8-yard skip, and I think in the end we used about 2 8-yard skips and a 6-yard skip for this project. So now we're just marking out our foundations, digging. We still got lots of rubble, bits of concrete, soil, log, timber. There's all sorts of stuff buried here, so we're just trying to kind of find out what's going on around this space. Also, if you'd like to support our channel, you can do so by subscribing, giving us a like, comment, and you can also sponsor us via our Patreon, which I'll put in the description. So you can see here we're getting the kind of shape of the footings. The footings that we're doing are 300 millimeters wide, that's 30 centimeters. For those who use inches, that's about 12 inches, a foot wide. We'll be building this out of single skin wall, which will be a 100 mil wide wall. So the footings, we make them 300, so you have 10 centimeters either side of the wall as footings. So here we're still continuing to clear. There was a lot of logwood at the back that had basically got saturated and rotted out, so it was quite easy to clear it. And here you can see we've made the outline of the footing, the 300 mil footing, and then we just basically dig the inside part of it. With these small houses, we generally dig down our foundation about 450 millimeters. Obviously you take it by a case-by-case basis depending on what the soil is like, but for a small house like this, 450 mil should be enough. As you can see, we're just continuing to dig, so there's a lot of digging. This is day one obviously, and just show you how far we got at the end of day one. So we're obviously just moving all this soil, so lots of labor intensive work. So get your mate to give you a hand, get the kids out, because you'll be doing a lot of shoveling, a lot of moving of soil, at least probably for a day or two. So now we're starting to see the shape of where this area is, and we've got a clearer working area. And you can see as well, it's quite a good size building. These buildings are built to the specification to allow them to be built under permitted development. I know many people do ask, do you need planning permission to build these buildings? Generally speaking, as long as you keep within certain perimeters, you don't need planning permission to build these. If you do a search online for permitted development for outbuildings, you will find the basic specifications, which mainly are the size of your garden. You're permitted a maximum percentage to use of your garden. I think it's up to 50% of your garden can be used for outbuildings and extensions, etc. You are supposed to add the size of all your buildings together, whether it's you've got a shed, whether you've got an existing extension, plus this house that you want to build, and they all together shouldn't be more than 50% of your garden size. Also, there are rules to do with how close it can go to the boundary. As you can see, ours is quite close to the boundary. If you're building it as close within 1 meter of the boundary, generally speaking, you're not allowed to, your building shouldn't be higher than 2.5 meters, I believe, at the eaves. So that's the lower end of the roof. But do check online and find these details yourself, just to double check and clarify. So we've finished digging now, and you can see we've put these stakes in the ground, which are giving us a level for our foundation. I believe they're about 30 centimeters high, and this is where our foundation concrete will be poured up to, and it just gives you a reference. So when you're pouring it, when you're tapping it, you can find where the top of the concrete should be. So we're ready to go. As you can see, we've got carried some engineering bricks in, which we'll be also using as part of our foundation. So our foundation will be consisting of a concrete footing as well as a few rows of engineering brick, and that will be our foundation. So these are the materials that we'll be using for this part. You can see we've got our building sand, which is what you would use for your bricklaying. We also have ballast as well, which we will use for our concrete. So you can see the ballast is a mix of sharp sand and small stones, and that's what we use for the concrete footings. So we've got 2 bags of ballast. That should be enough to do the concrete footings, just to give you an idea of what you need. And our house is 4 by 3, so just giving you an idea of how much concrete you will need for that. And the ratio that we're mixing the ballast is 4:1. So that's, we're using a bucket, so we're measuring 4 buckets of ballast and 1 bucket of cement. If you can get a mixer, hire a mixer, it would be a good idea. You will save yourself a lot of back-breaking work, and you'll get the job done quicker. You can generally hire a mixer for about £30–40 for the week, and we only use this mixer on this job for a week. So as long as you get on with the job, you shouldn't have to spend too much. So as you can see, we're just pouring the concrete. It did start raining a little bit, but it's not too bad. As long as it's not chucking down, you should be fine. And this will probably take you a couple of hours, depending on how far you've got to get your material from. Unlucky for us, we have no rear garden access or no side access, so we couldn't actually use a wheelbarrow to get our material. We had to carry the material in buckets through the house and all the way to the back of the garden, so that did slow us down a bit. But as you can see, we've finished our footings, so we actually have the main part of our foundation done. We'll let that dry for a day or two, but we're here on the next day. So what we're doing now is we are just setting out the lines for our bricks, because we're going to be laying these foundation bricks. So we wanted to just mainly get the building square. We did do this when we were digging the foundation to give us a general shape, but now we're just making it a bit more accurate with some string lines. And also we will use the string line to get the height of our first bricks and make sure the string line is level. You can get string levels where basically when you tie your string, you clip this small little level onto the string, and then you can basically adjust either end of the string. I find that's one of the easiest ways to get your level, your line level. You can pick those up in most hardware stores like Screwfix or places like that, and they're only a few pounds. So as you can see now, we're moving around. We do the first course all the way around. This is how we do it, and then we build up the corners. They're going to be 3 bricks high, so I'm just building up the corners, and then we run the center part straight through using a string line again, so we get it nice and straight. Just put your string on the edge and run the center of the bricks. You can see a bit better here. We're doing it here. So the corners, you just need to take your time, use your levels, make sure they're plumb, make sure they're level, check your corners, check your sides, take your time. If you are not used to bricklaying, I'm not a professional bricklayer, it's not my trade. Bricklayer, it's not my trade. I do a bit of bricklaying. I've taught myself, and I'm still learning all the time. So we're almost there now, just a few more, and this is the top, what we would call the floor level of the house. So the floor level of the house inside is going to be roughly pretty much level with the top of these bricks. So we're going to have to dig a bit of soil out. I noticed when I was editing the video we missed us putting the hardcore in, but we gotta dig and level this area out. We put some hardcore and some sharp sand down inside, compact it, and then we're going to put a damp proof membrane in there. So basically a little information about how we build up our oversight for these small houses. We just make sure that when we dig down that our hardcore and our sand gets to the bottom of the second brick. So the second brick from the top coming down. So you've got your top brick, you've got your second brick down. The bottom of that brick is where we want our should I say hardcore and sand, so we get that nice and flat and compact. Then we'll put the damp proof course down, which you'll see in a bit. So now we're about to put our damp proof membrane down, also called a DPM. We're putting it down over the sand now. As I said before, we will have now 2 bricks above this layer. Now the reason why we do that is because we use 50mm rigid board insulation, which will get us almost to the top of the second brick, and then we will be doing 100mm of concrete. So 2 bricks is basically what we've got to work with, and 2 bricks are 150mm. So we will use 50mm of that for the insulation, and then there will be 100mm of concrete, or 4 inches, and that's how we do our oversight. Then we'll be at the level of the floor in the house, and we will make sure that we get our concrete nice and level, because there is no 75mm screed or anything on top of this. This is the finished level. And if we're not 100% happy with the level or with the floor, we can use a thin coat of self-lever on the top, but with this we get it pretty much flat, at least this one anyway, so it wasn't necessary. And this was our floor that we used to lay our flooring inside. So it's just the same. as laying the footings. It's the same ballast that we use, just mixing ballast and pouring it. And as you can see, we're leveling it as we go with some 2x4. Just get a nice long straight piece of 2x4 or join two together like what we did, and just make sure that you're nice and flat, and you just scrape off any excess with the 2x4. I was just giving it a nice little flatten. So this is the next day, day 7 on the project now. We had a bit of rain the night before, or the morning actually, but you can see that the foundation is fine. So I've trimmed the DPM, and this is how I do it. I trim it roughly about halfway overlapping the brick, and this will get the DPC, which is the damp proof course, the black plastic that you can see here. You roll it out 100mm wide and cut it to length, and then it will be cemented or sandwiched between the first row of blocks and the engineering bricks that we've already laid. So you just have a thin smear of it underneath, and then you lay your bricks on top. So as you can see, I'm just applying some cement underneath, and then we can start laying our blocks. So these blocks that we're using are solid concrete blocks. They are quite heavy, and like we did with the engineering bricks, we just get our first course around just to get our shape. You can dry lay your first course as well, which may help you just to make sure that you know where your cuts are going to be, where your door entry is going to be. So on the right hand side, the first block that we laid is where the window, or where the door opening should I say, starts, and we're going to have 2 windows as well, one in the front and one on the left hand side of the house. So you'll start to see where these are as we're moving along. So you can see the doorway entrance here now behind me, and again I'm just building up some corners, and then we'll run some string like we did with the bricks. So again, just take your time, make sure your walls are level and plumb, very important, because this is the main structure of the building. So you want to make sure that this is nice and straight, or else anything that's not straight or crooked, it's going to affect everything else that you do when you build the house, whether it's fitting your doors, fitting your windows, fitting your roof, fitting your plasterboard. Everything is going to be off and give you problems if you don't get things as straight as possible. So I'm just showing you here where the windows is. There's going to be one window here, and there's going to be another window straight ahead here as well, and then there's the door here. So I think this is pretty much it for this day, and this is how far we got on the first day of block laying. So we're back on the next day to continue block laying. This is day 8 of the project overall, and we'll probably get most of the bricks, most of the blocks laid today. So you can see I'm doing most of the corners and building around the doors and windows and so on, while my friend here is doing the running in mostly. So we have our way of doing it, and it helps us to get things done quicker. And obviously we have someone doing our mixing and carrying our blocks. And again, the blocks, as I said before, we have no side or rear entrance, so it's literally carrying things in by hand. So we have the wheelbarrow halfway for the bricks, and but half of it is carried in by hand. So this is where we got to the following day. So this is day 2 of our blocks. So we're nearly there now. We're at the top of the windows and the top of the door, as you can see, and we've set some bricks there overnight. So the next day we set our lintels on those, and you can see the opening for the 2 windows and where the lintels are ready to go as well. So the building in total will be 10 blocks high. As you can see, I'm just laying these lintels on here now, and this is the last course of blocks going up on the back of the house. So the bricks, just to give you an idea, the height of a standard brick is 75 millimeters, and 65 millimeters, but it's 75 including the mortar, and the height of these blocks including the mortar is 225 millimeters. So it's essentially 3 bricks for every block. So where you can see I'm putting this lintel now, the lintel is also the same height as a standard brick. So you can see I've got 2 bricks and a lintel, which make up the height of the adjacent blocks. And the same thing will be for the other side where the windows and the doors are. There will be, as you can see, 1 brick, 1 lintel, and then there will be a row of bricks on top of the lintel, and that will give us the height of our 10th block. So moving along now, we are almost there with the block laying. We'll be complete them today. So this is the last row of bricks that are about to happen now. So once this last row is gone on, we are now going to install the wall plate. So this is basically a 2x4 layer of timber that gets some cement under. Make sure you put cement. This will help you to level the timber, make sure it's nice and there's no gaps underneath it, and we just apply a row of mortar just like you would if you were laying bricks, and then we place these timbers on top, and then we also do a joint where we will be screwing them to each other. So you cut them and overlap them and then screw them together in the corners, or if you have a long run where you need to join 2 pieces together, you screw them together as well. So I'll just show you how we join them together, just to give you an idea. So you can see how we cut the overlap here, and then we'll just put some screws through onto that as well, and the same is what we do in the corners as well. So now I'm just double checking the levels. If your walls are straight, then you should be quite straight already, and just give it a little tap down, and then you'll be able to clean off any excess mortar. As you can see, it's coming out here. So just try to get the house nice and level. It should be level all the way around. Obviously if you have a laser, even better. And this is the main structure of the house is now built. So you can see the actual shape and size of the building, doorway, 2 windows, the lintels. You can see the wall plate as well fitted on. So the wall plate will get some straps, and this will tie the roof to the actual building. So it's very important that you put these straps on. I know we don't have hurricanes really in the UK, but we do have bad storms, and this will be what will keep your roof down. to your building basically. So we're on day 10 now, so it's basically 2 weeks in. Day 10 we're starting to install our rafters. We are using 6x2 rafters. Again, you need to check span tables to make sure you use the right size rafters for the length of span that you'll be using. Mainly you need to do this to make sure that the timbers are strong enough to take the weight of the roof over this span. Remember, this is a flat roof, so you know you don't want your timbers to sag under the weight of the roof, especially maybe in the winter when it snows and stuff like that. So make sure you get the right size. If in doubt, you know, go up a size, never go down, to try and save money, because you will you know, if you get it too small, it's going to be very costly to remedy it. So what we do here now is we've screwed the first 2 outer ones down into our position. We've got a 300mm overhang off the front, and we've put a string across those 2. And then what we can do now, as we space the other ones, we just make sure that they are just touching the string so that they're all be in a straight line. So when we put our fascia boards, they'll be nice and straight. So there's a number of ways you can fix your rafters down. You can use nails, screws, brackets. We use long wood screws and screw a couple of them down in the corners diagonally. Once we've done the first ones and we've spaced them all out, we're 400mm centers, so that's 400mm from the center of each rafter. Then we just go to the back and do exactly the same thing and screw them all down, and they'll be nice and square. So now we're just installing our soffit board. So our soffit board is 300mm wide. That's why we left that 300mm overhang, and we're just using some soffit nails and nail them in the center. 1 nail on each rafter should be fine. So these soffits have ventilation grills built in, and the reason why we use these is to allow air to flow through the roof from the front of the roof to the back, and that helps to prevent condensation in the roof, which will cause rotting of the joists. So there'll also be ventilation grill at the end or the back of the house, and that will be your cross ventilation, and air will pass up through the rafters, over the insulation, and through the other end. So we've nailed the fascia board, the front fascia board, on now, just cutting it to length. So this fascia will wrap all the way around the house, down the sides, around the back, and we'll put corner caps on as well to finish it off nicely. So here's just a close-up of the soffit so you can see what it looks like. You can see the ventilation on the front here. And you can see all the rafters look like as well. And here's from above. The rafters all fixed down, and the fascia boards, and you can see the ventilation at the back as well. So now with a flat roof, even though it's called a flat roof, it's actually not 100% flat. There is a slope, so you have to use what we call furrings. Now, if anybody is in the building trade knows that timber prices right now are astronomical, so there are ways to save money if you're willing to do a little bit of work. So actually the place where we buy these, this is exactly what they do. They just cut the timber down. As you can see, we're using a 2x4, which gives us the right slope for what we're doing, and we cut from one diagonal end straight down with a circular, nice and straight, and we actually get 2 furrings out of this board. And just to give you an idea, the store was selling 1 furring for about £14, and we got 1 piece of this timber for about £7, and we get 2 furrings out of that. So you can see how much you can save if you work a bit smarter. So this probably took us 10 minutes to cut the furrings. I think there was about 11 of them. Didn't take us much time at all, and saved over £100. So you can see we're just putting the furrings up now, and basically the furrings sit on top of the rafters, and just use some long screws and put a couple of screws along the timber and basically make them become one essentially with the rafter. Screw them right down, and that will give you your fall. So our fall is going towards the front of the house, and that's the way the water will drain, and we'll have a guttering in at the front. So just make sure you start the furrings at the back, as you can see at the back of the timber here, and you should be all fine with them all falling the same way. Now also with this span we need to put some noggins to stop the rafters from twisting. So we're using some pieces of leftover pieces of the 6x2, and we run them down the center and just put them in between the gap, measure the gaps between the rafters, cut them, screw them in from the sides, and that will give you the stability that you need in your roof rafters. So now we're just fixing the straps. Some people call them hurricane straps, long straps. There's various names for them, but we're just fixing them now. So basically there's lots of holes in them. You need to drill a couple of holes down the length, put some wall plugs in, put some screws, then also screw it from the top of the rafter as well, so it's screwed into the wall plate. So that will be connecting your wall plate to your brick walls. So on that day we actually ran out of wall straps, so we continued the rest the next day. So we're back now for day 11, and we are putting on the OSB. So this is OSB tongue and groove. OSB 3 is what we're using. When you're laying it, check for the rough side. If you're doing roofs, there's one side that's quite smooth and one side that's a little bit more rough. Lay the rough side up. So just double check that when you're laying it. As you can see, we've laid them down now, and we are just getting ready to put the trim, the drip trim for the front of the roof. So first thing we do is we fix a piece of 25mm by 35mm batten, and then we put our front drip trim. So just nail it down around the edge with clout nails. So you basically are just nailing it to the OSB. Give it a good few nails around the edge. Make sure you lay it flat so you don't have any bulges. It's very easy to bulge and twist the fiberglass if you don't lay it flat. So it's good if someone's holding it for you flat while you put the nails in. Now these are the side trims as well, which prevents water from going off the sides and basically channels all the water down one direction. So it's slightly raised edge. So we'll have this trim on the sides and the back of the house, and everything will flow towards the front. So again, just continue nailing them all the way around. So make the first part there flush with the front. And if you need to make any joins, as you can see, we need to add a join on the left here. Just make your joins overlap. This manufacturer recommends a minimum of 50mm overlap, which is plenty enough because you need to fiberglass over the joint anyway. So just overlap by 50mm, you should be fine. And make sure you put a nail in the overlap as well. So this is all the trim fitted and ready for fiberglassing. We weren't able to film the fiberglassing on this day. We were just worried about the weather, so we had to move really quickly, and it's difficult to have a tripod on top of a roof while you're fiberglassing it. But if you do want to see any videos of us going into more detail of fiberglassing, that we have more videos, and I'll put a link in the description as well. As you can see, we did almost all of the roof, didn't get far enough, but we completed the rest the next day. So if you do get that far and you don't get it completed, get some plastic if you can, cover the roof. We used a bit of damp-proof membrane, that blue stuff that we used in the foundation. It's very waterproof. Cover the roof with that, put something on top of it so it doesn't fly off, just to make sure that the OSB timbers don't get wet, because they have to be dry. Anyway, we're back the next day. We completed that small area as soon as we got in, so we know now that our roof is watertight. And now we're installing timber battens along the walls. These are 2x3 timber battens, and we will be using these to build our internal walls off. So it's basically a partition from the outside wall to the inside wall. We will be laying insulation, rock wall insulation, in between the battens, and then plasterboarding over. So again, depending on what your budget is, depends on what insulation you want to use. If rock wall is a bit cheaper. If you want to spend more money, you can use like what we used on the floor, something like Kingspan or Extra Therm or Celotex, some type of rigid foam insulation. Will give you a higher U value, but is a lot more expensive. But what we chose to do, and what we decide to do when we build these to keep the prices down, is we use the rigid board in the floor and we use it in the ceiling, because we feel like that's where most of the heat escapes, and the rock wall in the walls, and they seem to be insulated well enough. So all the battening is done. Also the cabling has been run for the lights and sockets as well. So day 13 we are installing the windows. So first thing we're doing is just attaching the window sills to the windows. It's all PVC, a couple of screws underneath, attach them and slot them in. So we take the glass out first, obviously, so that we can work with the window, and also we can get some screws through into the concrete wall and fix the windows in. Once we fix the windows in, then we just seal any gaps around with foam and they're good to go. Put the glass back in. So now that the windows are both in, we can start fitting our insulation. So as I said before, we use the rigid board insulation in our ceilings, and while we lay them, you lay them flush to the bottom of the rafter, so there is a gap above. You remember that I told you about the cross ventilation through the soffits, so that air will now flow over and above those insulation boards, and pass through the other side of the roof. So just try to cut them, take your time again, take your measurements accurately so you can get them in tight, not too tight that you know you break them while you're trying to force them in, but you want to get them in nice and snug. Also, I'm putting some insulation inside the cutouts that I've made for the light fittings. I've made some large square cutouts where the light fittings will sink into the ceiling, and I also insulate around that area, just again to help the place be more insulated and less places for air to get through and drafts and so on. So you can see a little bit closer of me trying to get them in. I get them in, then I put a few screws in to hold them in place. If you want to go over the top, you could get some spray foam in there as well into any little gaps, but this will be fine. You can see I put a couple of screws just to hold it in place so they don't flop about. So now we're doing the insulations in the walls. As you can see, we're using 50mm cavity insulation, and that fits in nicely level with our timbers, which are also 50mm deep as well. So again, we also use it this way as well to minimize the reduction of space inside the house. We try to keep it, you know, as tight as possible. You want to save as much internal space as you can, and we feel that this works quite well as a balance of insulation and space. And here's a little bit of a close-up, all insulated. So we're back on the job, day 14, and the first job for us today is to fit the door. So pretty straightforward, fits nice and snug. Make sure it's all plumb level, use your spacers where you need to, and also we'll screw these into the wall using long screws and wall plugs. So this door, it comes away from the frame, which most do. Makes it easier to fit the frame. Once the frame's in, then you can just hook the door on, and that should be it. So now what we're doing now is installing what's called a vapor barrier. This is another a method to help prevent condensation in the roof and the walls. So a very important step in my opinion, and something that you should definitely do. They're not expensive. I think this roll costs somewhere in the region of 20 to 30 pounds for a roll, and one roll was enough to do this whole house, so well worth doing. Make sure you get industrial stapler as well, or staple gun, so that you can staple it to the rafters. So we do the ceiling first, and this is definitely a two-man job. 3-man is more helpful if you can get a third man to stretch it out while one man staples it, but 2 of us are doing just fine. So we staple it out, stretch it out, and then give it loads of staples to keep it nice and level, straight, tight. So we do the ceiling first, and then we will do the walls after. Just make sure you overlap it. Try to just close all gaps up and make sure it's nice and straight. So last bit of the wall here. Just get it all the way around, tight, make sure everything's overlapped. Then you can cut out your doorway and your windows. It's easier to do it this way and then cut them out after, than trying to cut it around as you're going along. So you can see everything's well overlapped, there's no gaps anywhere. And once that's done, you are now ready to start laying your plasterboard. And it actually looks quite cool as well as a green room. So plasterboard, now we start from the ceilings and then we do the walls after, because it's much easier that way. So again, if you've got 2 people to help you, 2 guys holding it up, 1 guy screwing it in, again much helpful. If there's 2 of you, if there's only 2 of you, you can still do it with 2. You can see we made a little prop there as well, which helps us at times. Or you can actually buy these props, they're not expensive either. Little support jacks that you can use to help you to support the plasterboard before you screw it up. So it's pretty straightforward. Try to stagger your joints when you're doing your plasterboard as well. So as I've cut this smaller piece here, I'll reuse the other end, down the other end, and stagger it similar to like when you're laying bricks, and that will help to give some more rigidity to your roof and prevent cracks. So we are back on day 15, and what you can see is I'm just cutting out the holes for the downlights. I did make a note of where the wires were, and I did mark them on the ceilings so that it was easy to find exactly where they were. So once all my holes are cut out, I push the cables back in, and now I'm skimming the ceiling. So we do 2 coats of multi-finish on the ceilings and 2 coats on the walls as well, and that's how we get our perfect finish for paint. So ceiling's always the hardest to do. Obviously the finish is very important for all the work that you've done. So obviously if you're no good at plastering, which I know is a difficult thing for many people if they've never done it before, definitely invest in a plasterer to do this. A good plasterer will have this done in a day and a half, 2 days. We did this in about a day and a half, a day and a bit. So it's well worth paying for a plasterer to do this. I mean, there are other alternatives like joint filling. I personally don't recommend it. That's where you tape up all the joints and then you fill them. I don't feel it's a durable finish. It's just my opinion, and just from my experience, I think that skim is the best way to go. So if you can get a plasterer in to do that, then I would definitely do that. So this is still our first coat. So what we do is we do 1 coat on the ceiling, and depending on how quick it's setting, I might go on and do a coat on another wall, maybe a small wall, and then come back to this. So this is a brilliant tool that I use, and I would recommend to anybody, whether they are been plastering for 30 years or you're learning. This will help you with your plastering a lot. It's called a speed skim. There are different brands out there, but this is the Ox speed skim, which is the one that I use, and it helps you to flatten your walls and saves you a lot of time. And it's definitely something that I enjoy using, especially when you're doing ceilings. It just makes life a lot easier and lets you move a lot quicker as well. I will put a link as well in the description to the product if you want to check it out as well. So now I'm just cleaning up the edges. This is my first coat. Cleaning up. Always make sure you clean your edges before they get hard. Pass a damp brush around the edges and smooth them up. So I'm doing now a first coat on the larger wall. Try to get the big walls out of the way, really. Just doing that big wall now, giving it 1 coat. You can see I've already put in the plasterboard boxes for the sockets as well, so then I don't need to cut them out after and risk damaging the plaster. Just skim around them. So again, I'm using the speed skim. As you can see, it's very easy, very quick to flatten the wall down nice and flat, and then we go over it with the trowel and again clean the edges. So now it's time for the second coat on the ceiling. As you can see, I'm getting a second coat. This is a slightly thinner coat, about a 1mm coat. Just get it on. I like to just get it on quickly, and then I will again use this speed skim just to flatten it off and take off the excess. Then I go from the outside edges and I go over with my steel trowel first. Then we'll let that set for a bit and then go over it a few passes, and it should be good to go. And while it's setting, I will go back onto the first wall that I done and give that the second coat. So this is the finished product. Ceiling and walls are done, and I think that's as far as we got on that day. We also did the reveals of the windows as well, and the doors, so that makes it nice and easy for us. Tomorrow we only have to do 3 walls, and they're not that big, so shouldn't take us too long to do that. So we are back on day 16 and we'll be finishing the plastering today. So as you can see, just skimming the first wall. For those of you who are learning, and there's lots of people that always ask about skimming and plastering and so on, you're gonna find, you know, people saying this is how you need to skim. You have to do from the top to the bottom, or the left to the right, or the right to the left. I've seen so many people do it so many different ways, and as far as I'm concerned, all that matters is the finished product. So however you feel comfortable with working, some people, we all have different motor skills and we're all built differently. Some of us feel comfortable using the back of our hands with the trowel. Some of us feel comfortable with the front of our hands. Some of us are left-handed, some of us are right-handed, and it's just what matters is what's comfortable to you, what you feel comfortable with. Try different ways, and just find what you naturally flow with the best. That's my view on it. And what matters, it doesn't make sense you trying to do it the way someone told you to do it and you just can't get the finish the way you want it. Just do the way that you feel is more comfortable and that works best for you. So also, again, I'm using the speed skim here. I highly recommend this product. As I said, I will put the link in the description. It's an amazing product. It will also help you with your plastering. It will help you get the job done quicker, and also just getting your walls flat. So that's what I'm doing here on the first coat. And when I pass it on the second coat, when I apply the second coat, I will also pass it on the second coat as well, and then the wall should be nice and flat. So that's the first coat on the first wall. 3 walls to do, simple small walls to do today, so light work. So this is just last pass here, and as you can see, all done today. So all the walls are done, the ceiling is done, everything is cleaned up, edges have been cleaned, and this room is ready for paint as it is. So we'll give it a couple of days to dry. It's quite hot at the moment. I think we might have got this done on a Thursday, and I think we will probably paint this on the following Monday or Tuesday. So day 17, we're back. As you can see, it's raining, and we were going to K-rend the outside of the house, but we had to cancel it. We did some angle beading anyway in preparation for the next day, so we've had to go back inside and do what we can. We fitted the lights, we fitted the light switch, and also we fitted the sockets as well. We had to find things to do that day, and so what we decided to do was to go and pick up some laminate floor. As you can see, we picked up some laminate floor. We're just giving the place a nice sweep out, clean up, and we'll lay the laminate floor. We would have laid the laminate floor after we did the painting, but again, we don't want to waste time and we have to manage our time well. So we will just put some sheeting down when we're ready to paint. So here's the underlay that we're using. It's a good underlay for what we're doing, and we are laying an 8mm laminate floor. So this is quite a simple laminate floor to lay. It's just a click type of laminate floor, clicks in from the end. We tend to lay from left to right, and we work in the long direction of the room and across the doorway. We feel it's the best way to do. Make sure you leave your gap around the edges. Obviously we've got a hollow wall here, so our flooring is just slightly tucked underneath the plasterboard wall, but there's ample space behind it for it to move about. So we're just clicking it, starting from the left, moving to the right. We've got quite a few videos of us laying flooring. I've actually got one tutorial one as well where I explain a lot, so you can check out the channel for that. We just use a circular saw to cut the straight cuts. This is a very simple space, the best type of place to learn to lay flooring, nice and square, no irregular cuts or anything, and we just lay the underlay in sections as we're moving along due to our lack of space. So we pretty much did half of the room then moved things to the other half, and then we put the underlay on the other half, and then we continue laying that way. Obviously it's raining outside, so we can't really have stuff outside or work outside, so we have to do everything inside. So this is the finished product. So the floor is laid. So all we need to do now is to paint the room, install the skirting boards, and that will be the inside area done. So we're back on day 18th, and we've got better weather today, no rain. So we're going to tackle the outside. You can see we've got K-rend 14 bags is what we've measured for this. So for if you're building something this size, 4x3, obviously take into account the windows and the door. This is the calculation. Generally speaking, you will get about 1.5 meters, maybe up to 2 meters squared out of a bag of K-rend. Okay, and that is up to the required thickness. So with this product here, we're using, with these walls, these new block walls, you can go directly onto the block, no undercoat needed or anything. It will go straight onto the block. So we go 1 thin coat, and then I'm going to embed a mesh, a fiberglass mesh, into this to prevent cracks, and then go over it again to embed it, and then give it a final coat on top. This product does get scratched, so it has a slight textured finish, and it will also help you or save you from some of your minor imperfections of your plastering. So try to get it as flat and as smooth as you can, but you won't have to get it as perfect if you were rendering sand and cement. So just make sure you still trowel float it and get it as flat and straight as you can. As you can see, I'm embedding the mesh into the first coat here, and then I'll go over another one on top of that one just to make sure that it's embedded well. So another thing, when you're applying the mesh, always make sure that you overlay your joints of mesh by 10 centimeters or 100 mil. So you can see the part I've done under the window, I've overlapped it on the left hand side by 10, and same thing with this section, and the little piece on the top will overlap both sides by 100 mil as well. So always go overlapping by 100 mil. Just give it a first flatten over, and then you'll go over it again. So also, while the rendering was going on outside, the inside was being painted with the first coat. So actually it's had an undercoat, which has been a watered down matte emulsion. We give that a watered down coat first to seal the plaster, and then it got one coat on top of that, and then we let that dry, and then the following day we give it the final coat on the walls and ceilings. So on day 18 I actually had got one of the sides done as well in the alleyway. It's very tight in the alleyway, so I wasn't able to actually film to get the camera into that little alley, but I'm on the other side of the house, which has a larger space. I managed to just get a camera to show you a bit of what I'm doing here. So this is now the third wall being done, and day 18 I will be doing this wall and the large wall at the back of the house, and that will be the K-Ren complete. So same as the other side, literally the same thing. Give it a coat, put the mesh in it, and just build up the coats to the required thickness. Good thing about the K-Rend is you can mix it quite easily with most whisks or mixers, drills in the bucket. We mix the full bag at a time. It's very easy to whisk and mix up because it's quite a light product compared to your standard sand and cement mix, which you would tend to mix in a cement mixer. Although you can mix with drills as well, but you need a very high quality, powerful one to do that. But this will mix with most mixers that you can use to mix your plaster. Again, don't forget to use your mesh and make sure you overlap it again by 10 centimeters. So I'm overlapping 10 centimeters either side of the window, so that when I put the right hand side mesh, it would have overlapped with that one as well. The meshes are not expensive. You tend to get something like this, a 50-meter roll, 50 by 1 meter roll, which is more than enough to do this house. You could probably do 2 houses with that, and it will cost you in the region of £50 for the roll. So definitely not something to skip on. Although you can render without mesh in it, but it's just a good idea to have it in there, especially with this product. It's recommended to be used. And don't forget to do your window reveals as well. And then I'll just go over this wall one more time as well, and then let it set. The weather is quite warm, so if the weather is quite hot, you need to keep your eye on this, and you probably need to scratch it the same day. The weather we definitely had to scratch it the same day. So you can see here we were still in the process of scratching, and the inside has had its final coat of paint as well. So outside is pretty much nearly there, and the inside just needs some skirting boards, and also the electrician is coming the following day, I believe, to fit the electrical box and run the steel wire armor cable to the house. So here's day 20. This is the last day of the build. We are back on top of the roof, and we are just going to apply the UV protection, which is a gray color. So first thing we do is we sand the roof down with 80 grit sandpaper. You just want to make sure you key it well for the paint to stick to it, and then you start painting. So with this product, you need to mix it with the hardener just like you do when you're doing the resin. Make sure you're using the correct measurements, which you will have on the bucket, and also make sure that you're using the correct hardener. It's summer now, so we use the summer hardener. We have winter hardeners, and we also have summer hardeners as well, so we're using the summer hardener because it's over 20 degrees here at the moment, so we have to use this, and make sure you use the correct ratio. So we are just painting all the trims, all the edges first, and then we tend to do the flat areas with a large roller. Now we did have a problem with our large roller while we were in the middle of it, so we kind of just gave up with it, and I did it all with the smaller roller. This paint is very easy to paint, doesn't take much time, not much effort at all, so didn't have any problem using this small roller to paint it. Maybe it took me an extra 5 minutes, but in an ideal world I would have used my 12-inch roller to paint the inner areas. So again, just take your time, make sure you get good coverage, not too thick, not too thin, and make sure you spread it out well. So we're nearly there. As you can see, it rolls out quite well with this, even though the roll is small, but it's very easy to paint, and you can see it looks nice and smooth. This is how you want your fiberglass to look. No pinholes, well consolidated when you were applying it, and it should look like this. So also what we did this day we didn't show was we fitted the gutter in that day, and we also fitted the skirting boards inside and painted it as well, and I think that was the end. We also did all the sealing around the windows with frame sealant on the insides and outsides, and this is job done. So you can see the gutter here, and you can see we sealed all around inside and outside with a waterproof window sealant, and the electrician also fitted the electrics, so we have power. And this is the finished product, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and have learned something from it. If you are looking to build one yourself, then have a go and see what you can create. If you want someone to build one for you, if you're in London, then give us a shout as well, and we will be more than happy to do that for you. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's been a long one, but we just wanted to kind of show you the whole process of what it takes to build one of these houses and how you can do it in 20 days.